one and only Team 2.
Oh, g'day guys, how we doing? Actually, hang on, we're not doing too well because, just hang on a sec there. Hang on, I've just, where are we? Hang on. Oh, hang on, geez, it's all happening tonight. Hang on, I'm not on. Hang on a sec. There we go. I'm back. Gee, sorry about that. If you're listening on Spotify, you didn't see that or hear that, whatever, but I had it on the wrong application there, so I come up and it was on my secondary screen, so apologies about that. But we are on. It is Monday, July the 13th, 2026. This is Talking Boxing, and yeah, I should have probably tested that, shouldn't I? But welcome to the show. Looks like we've got a fair few in the chat tonight. If you're new to the show, it is pretty easy. As it says there, it's Talking Boxing, and put your comment, question, remark, insult, whatever it might be, in the chat. Don't put the insults in there. We don't want that. And there, let's talk some boxing. So I'm just watching on the must be a little bit of a delay here. I'm just watching myself on the screen there. Pretty silly stuff. All right, okay, we're going to start with Big J. Looks like you've got a few to get through there, Big J. You always sort of get in early, don't you? I'm going to try and find your comments here. Just again, as always, forgive me with the order of the first few comments, but it'll work itself out as we go. So again, put your whatever it is in the chat there, and let's get the party started. All right, Big J, what do we got there, mate? Hey, mate, have to completely disagree with you. Oh, that's a great start, isn't it? With you putting Tim in the top 15 of the world champions. Out of the 20-plus men to win world titles, I put Tim at the bottom of the list. Geez, you're a harsh man, Big J. No, I didn't actually say world champions, by the way. I said Aussie pound for pound. I'd have him in the top 15 fighters. Around 15, whatever it might have been. I was probably trying to go through my head. All right, Cambosis and Maloney's and Rose and Famishon and Fennick and yeah. Look, each to their own. As I said in the walking boxing this morning, it's a really really hard one to sort of do an exercise to do, because is it the most talented fighter we've got or the most successful fighter we've got? Does it have to be a world champion? I don't know. I mean, whether you like it or not, BJ, Tim is a former world champion. Now, I know he won the belt or a vacant belt, but I haven't got an issue with that. Shit happens in boxing. You fight for world titles, you fight for vacant titles. It doesn't matter as long as you get that vacant belt around your waist. I don't like just being given a world title. I don't like that. But I mean, Tim fought for a vacant belt against Brian Mendoza, won the belt. So you got to give him his cred. As far as top 15, I mean, geez, look at the world champions we've had. We'll quickly go through a few. I mean, who would you not have him in front of? I mean, you got Jeff Fennick, of course. These are the big ones. Jeff Fennick, Johnny Famishon, Lionel Rose. Did you count Rocky Mattioli in there? I did a thing with him yesterday on this day, and it had him as an Italian world champion, Rocco Mattioli. To have Jimmy Carruthers and Jeff Horn and George Cambosis, the Maloneys and Daniel Gill and Danny Green. I mean, yeah, look, it's a tough one, BJ. Look, without going into the whole argument about the whole thing, I would have Tim in front of the likes of Danny Green. I'd have him in front of Jeff Horn. I'd have him in front of probably Jimmy Carruthers, even maybe Jeff Harding. But again, is it accomplishments or is it actual talent? This is the thing we've got to weigh up. I thought I was actually being pretty good with being around the top 15 mark. I stand by. I think he's definitely in the top 15 fighters we've had in this country. Yes, and I said this morning again that Jeff Horn, I mean, technically you could have him in front of Tim, but Tim absolutely wiped the floor with Jeff when they fought. So how do you weigh it up? But I would definitely have Tim in our top 15 all time. That's just my opinion. That's cool. I'd like to hear your opinions, unless you've already given them to me. I don't agree with this either. Tim was an email champ that defended against a C-grade fighter, then lost it. As hard as that is to accept, but he's only lost on title fights so far. Not an email champ, Big J. An email champ is when you get given a belt. Tim wasn't given a belt. There's lots of very, very good fighters around the world, past and present, that have won belts for vacant title fights. He's not an email champ at all. Someone like you want to pick someone, I'm just off the top of my head, someone like Sky Nicholson, who was given the WBC 122-pound belt. Well, that's an email champion. He's just been elevated to champion. Ajit Kabial, Murat Gassiev recently have just been elevated to world champion. Now, that's an email champ. Tim Tszyu fought for and won the belt, and regardless of whether it was vacant or not, doesn't matter. He's not an email champ, mate. So I get it. C-grade fighter, Brian Mendoza. Is that you? Sorry, you won it against him, didn't you? And then lost after that. How can you call Brian Mendoza a C-grade fighter? This is again come in interpretation. I feel like that 6-7 thing, don't I, at the moment? Brian Mendoza knocked out Sebastian Fundora. I know since then he hasn't done a lot. I get that. But he knocked out Sebastian Fundora, mate. Where are you going with a C-grade fighter? I don't get it. I really welcome your comments, Big J, and it's 100% your opinion, but I don't agree. Firstly, that he's an email champ, because that's a lie. And Brian Mendoza, to call him a C-grade champion, mate. I know you're grasping at straws a little bit for this blown-up welterweight sort of narrative you've got with Tim, but Brian Mendoza was a solid fighter. When he fought Brian Mendoza, mate, he was coming off a knockout of Sebastian Fundora. Sebastian Fundora is just gone on a tear ever since. How can you call him a C-grade fighter? I don't get it. Hasn't, look, I think I think we can all agree he hasn't gone on the great heights since the Tim fight, but it happens. It happens. Fighters fall off the perch a little bit sometimes when they've lost a big fight, and lots of things happen. They've almost become a journeyman overnight. It can happen. But when Brian Mendoza fought Tim Tszyu, he was hot property. A lot of fight experts around the world thought that he was going to beat Tim. And Tim put on a masterclass and won a clear-cut, dominant decision. So, and he was hot property at the time, Brian Mendoza. And as I said, coming off a knockout of Sebastian Fundora. So I don't agree with you, Big J, but I respect your opinion, mate. It's a free world, and you can say what you want. All right. All right. Okay. Here are all the Aussie fighters to win world titles, initials only. So, Jimmy Carruthers, Lionel Rose, Johnny Famechon, Jeff Fennick, Lester Ellis, Barry Michael, Jeff Horn, Anthony Mundine, Danny Green, Jeff Horn, BD. Who is BD there, mate? Gill. I'm struggling a little bit with all those initials there, mate, but all those blokes, top Tim, don't agree with you at all there, Big J. No. You got to also look at the level of competition, Big J. It's not like Tim is fighting also rans from around the world and peripheral contenders. He's lost to Sebastian Fundora and Bakram Murtazalia, mate. It's not like he lost to Brian Mendoza, or he lost to some top 18 challenger or something. He lost to Fundora and Murtazalia. It's not like he hasn't lost to established elite fighters. So, geez. And you look at, you put him behind, I'm just going to pick one of my favourite fighters here, Lester Ellis. Mate, Lester Ellis won the IBF title when it was similar to a WBF or an IBO title when he won it. And he beat Juan Kilyu, who, when you talk about C-grade fighters, there was a C-grade fighter. And had a life and death battle against probably another C-grade fighter in Rod Sequenin, and then lost the belt to Barry Michael, who, with all due respect to Barry, was more of probably a B-level fighter. And I'm a massive fan of Barry Michael as well, but I'm just calling it the way I see it. How could you say that someone like a Lester Ellis is above Tim? And I love Lester Ellis. He's my favourite fighter growing up, probably until Jeff Fennick came along. But geez, mate, you don't make a lot of sense there. Jimmy Carruthers didn't really... he had that great win in South Africa over Victor Ull. But Anthony Mundine, what's his signature win? Danny Green. I mean, Chock was super talented and he won the belt against, or the vacant belt. There you go. He won the vacant belt or interim belt, whatever it was, against Antoine Eccles. You've definitely got some arguments as far as Daniel Gill and who else you got there. I'm just trying to you got Para. I'm just trying to work out all the initials there. Obviously Rose and Famishon and Fennec and those types of guys. But mate, you're sort of not making a lot of sense there. You've got especially like Anthony Mundine ahead of Tim Zhu. I would probably have him in front of Tim Zhu at the moment as well. But you're not making sense as far as an email champion, because Anthony Mundine was in the same boat. Danny Green, arguably, again, he was a good friend back in the day, and he's a very, very good fighter. I'm sorry I'm getting behind here, guys, but unfortunately, we've started off with Big J, and he's got me on a bit of a tangent here. But Danny, I mean, where's his signature win? Roy Jones Jr. I mean, geez, if anyone's going to get stuck into Danny Green about fighting a washed-up fighter, I would have expected you to be into him about the Roy Jones Jr. fight. Got absolutely towed up by Antonio Tava and the Polish guy that he got knocked out as well. And again, I'm sort of having a go at these guys. I'm just using your sort of logic. And Danny Green, I mean, where was the big fights? Where was the going overseas? He had that sort of one good win over Eric Lucas over there. Yes, he could have beaten Marcus Bay, but he didn't. Just like Tim could have beaten Sebastian Fundora in the first fight, but he didn't. So I just think you're contradicting yourself a little bit on a few of these fighters there, Big J. But again, it's a free country. You can say what you will, and I'm sure on your channel you've already discussed this. So a little bit early for a drink, but he's got me going in the first 10 minutes. All right. Where are we? All right. So Jai, of course. Brown would be the only one I'd put below Tim at this stage. Lucas Brown? You count Lucas Brown as a real legitimate world champion, Big J. Geez, you're on a bit of a roll tonight, mate. Wow. I'm just going to go back to your list of fighters there. I would put, I won't go. I'll be here all night. But there's probably at least half of those guys you put up on that list there that I could make an argument that Tim Zhu I'd have higher. But we'll be here all night again. So maybe I'll come on your show and we can debate it there, BJ. All right, well, there's a little bit more of an explanation here. All right, I really think the media hype train did Tim a major disservice, painting him in a light he didn't deserve. If he beats Spence, they'll go crazy and say it's the best win of all time. Well, I definitely agree with the last comment there, Big J, and I did say it on my video this morning, that if he beats Spence, it will just be mass hysteria. The boxing media here in Australia just won't know what to do with themselves. They'll be doing laps around the oval in joy. They'll be waving the arms around. They won't know what to do with themselves. And that's cool. That's not Tim's fault, by the way. Look, as far as doing him a major disservice, look, obviously he got a lot of attention early because of his last name, but he did measure up. Don't forget, up until he lost to probably Murtazaliev, look, I think Tim was hot property. He has a lot of good wins. And I think we all wrote off the Fundora loss, and then the Murtazaliev fight come along, and that sort of made everyone sort of raise their eyebrows. And then, of course, the Fundora loss was really definitive because Fundora absolutely belted Tim on the night. But painting him in a light he didn't deserve. Well, what light should he have been in, Big J? I mean, he'd done no different to what a lot of other young prospects had done. If anything, he'd probably fought better fighters on the way to the world title than a lot of other prospects had. So, yeah, look, I do agree that the Australian media have made Tim out to be something that he's not. This massive global superstar is not. He's an Aussie superstar, but again, I do agree that maybe he doesn't deserve as much publicity and everything that a lot of other fighters maybe, when talking about someone like a Jai Patai deserve. I get that. And even when George Kambosos was world champion. But, yeah, look, I don't know. I do agree that he was painted in a light I'd say he didn't deserve, but maybe the Australian public just got a little bit excited about where Tim was at, and they continue to do it. Because even after all those losses, what's he had? 3 losses in total. All it took was one comeback win, and he's back. he's back. And now we're aiming for Canelo and Crawford and Charlo. We're aiming for all these guys. And then he'd have another loss. All right, well, I don't know where Tim goes from here. He has a couple of comeback wins against pretty soft opposition. And then Errol Spence, the biggest fight of all time here in Australia. And if he wins this, he's going to go to superstardom. That's probably what I'd probably have a chuckle about, Big J. But you got to remember the Australian media, this is probably the same all over the world, every country in the world. The media, they're employed to get eyeballs on their publication, whether it's a YouTube channel or an Instagram account or an actual newspaper or a TV channel. That's what they're paid to do, which is why they pumped him up like they do, and it sells. So a little bit, I agree and disagree a little bit as well, Big J. But I'm going to go through all your comments here because I don't want to look like I'm just skipping over them. All right. Okay. I was waiting for this one to come up. Where is it? This is the debacle on the Jeff Fenech interview. Yep, I did see that, mate. If I can find it. Okay. All right. Hang on. I'm going to go back off. I might just read it out off my phone here because I don't think I can find it on here. Yeah, there it is. All right, the debacle of an interview with Jeff Fenech should have never seen the light of day. Raw Sports should have never posted it. Be interesting if the Spence camp get wind of that. Very bad look. I agree it was a bad look, Big J. Look, I don't know, was it live or was it recorded? If it was recorded, surely he knows how to edit his videos. I mean, he should have firstly cut out the start and even midway through where it was just blackness and Jeff was trying to get his phone to work and just cut it out. I've got a feeling it must have been live. I'll go back and have a look, but normally you can replay the chat as well. I'm not sure he gets a lot of live viewers. I think he more gets his views after that. And look, good on him. He's obviously got a good rapport with Jeff and he has him on that channel pretty regularly. But you'd probably a couple things. Maybe record it so he can edit it. And secondly, maybe pick the days and times where you get Jeff on. Obviously, during the day, he's pretty busy, although the interview the other day was in the morning. So, but Jeff, I was concerned as well, though, watching it. A lot of people sent it to me. I had seen it by then, and I must admit, when I first saw it, I was like, gee, hang on, what's wrong with Jeff? Is he just woken up, or is he had a hard night or whatever? But it wasn't good. He got better as the interview went on, though. That was good. And I'm certainly not going to hang shit on Jeff like a lot of people have and everything. I mean, I love Jeff as a fighter, and he'll always be one of my heroes like he is to you guys out there. I just want what's best for him. I just hope he's okay. That's all I'm looking at the moment. But as far as the Raw Sports thing go, look, it's good on him for getting the interviews with Jeff, and I know he's had a few others on there as well. But I'd like him to, maybe just pick his times where he's interviewing these guys and maybe edit it. Maybe don't do it live, just record it so you can sort of tidy it all up at the end. Because I think it was about a 25-minute interview. It could have easily been about 18 or 19 minutes and we wouldn't have missed anything. And maybe you could have edited out a few things that maybe we didn't need to see or hear. So, but yeah, I'm with you, mate. It wasn't a great interview, that's for sure. All right, Ryan, how are you there, mate? Ryan Gray, good to see Zuffa out of the garage and heading a card at Madison Square Garden. Who you got, Belunga or a Butler? Now, it is at the MSG, Ryan, but I've got a feeling it's in the theatre, mate. I don't think it's in the big room, so technically it's not really at Madison Square Garden, but I get what you're saying there. At least they're out of Dana's garage. I would say Belunga. I think he's more the A side. I think he's been, brought in as maybe a name they can sort of get behind. This is Zuffa. I hope they remember his name, unlike Shakur Stevenson on the weekend being introduced as I think it was a NBA player or something, a little short for an NBA player, but whatever. And Dana White was pissed, wasn't he, about that? But I think Belunga. I think they've brought him in to get behind him and invest in him. So Butler will be tough, though. He's durable. He's tough. But I would expect Belunga, although he has been out of the ring for a year. So we'll see. He's very prone to an upset too, though, I reckon, Belunga. So I'm not saying Butler can't win or won't win. I just think they've invested a bit too much in Belunga to make him sort of fall at the first hurdle, I would think. But we'll see. All right. What are we up to now? Asbot. Where are you there, mate? Almost at the end of these comments. All right. Like it or loathe it, Tim Tszyu is driving most of Aussie boxing interest at the moment. Maybe we just need to be grateful. If he dominates Spence, it'll be awesome. Let's be honest. It will be, as by 100%. I'm not sort of, with what I said before, having a go at Tim necessarily or anything like that. It's nothing personal. I'm just sort of having my opinion on him as a fighter. But it will be great if he beats Spence. Great for Aussie boxing. All of a sudden, Tim Tszyu is right amongst it. And that was what my video was about this morning. What happens if he wins, but also what happens if he loses. And if he wins, geez, the massive door, well, all the doors open up and some massive fights are ahead of him. The only thing is, as I said in the video, is that it looks like even maybe Boots and Ortiz fight end of the year, they wouldn't fight till maybe this time next year. So his only, I think, avenue to a world title shot if he gets past Spence before this time next year would be maybe Josh Kelly. And he's fighting, I think, in August or September, I think, Josh Kelly. So, so it's just going to be massive if he gets over him. And I'm 100% in agreement with you. He is the driving force sort of behind the Aussie boxing interest at the moment, just like Jeff Horn was when he won, and I suppose to a certain extent George Kambosos. He's been a major catalyst. This is what you got to give him credit for. He's been a major catalyst for the next surge in Aussie boxing. It seems like every sort of 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, there's a push and a fighter comes along and away they go. And you throw in Jai Patara and Liam Paro at the moment. Australian boxing's on high, and the Maloney's, of course, especially Andrew with his world title at the moment. So, yeah, look, as I said, Asbot, I'm with you there, mate. I think he has been great for Aussie boxing, and before him was his dad and Jeff Fennick and Mundine and Green and all the rest of them. As I said, Horn. So he's doing great things, and he's getting eyeballs on the sport and creating opportunities for other fighters and getting money invested as far as government investment goes. So he's doing everything right. All right. What have we got there? Slip and Rip. I like that name. Where are you there, mate? All right, out of these boxing siblings, who would win in each matchup? All right, now you got me. Floyd Mayweather Sr. versus Jeff Mayweather. Oh, that's an interesting one. I'd probably go for Jeff Mayweather in that one. Vladimir Klitschko versus Vitaly Klitschko. Oh, geez, that's almost impossible to answer there, mate. They're very similar fighters. Vitaly. Skinny and Hussey Hussein. Oh, don't get me going there. Geez, I don't know. Hussey, I'll go for. Please, if you guys are watching it, don't hold it against me. Jason and Andrew, well, I'm not going to choose that one because I just think the perfect match against each other. It'd be almost like fighting a mirror, wouldn't it? Those two, but I'm not going to. It depends on who I'm talking to. The other week when I talked to Andrew, I thought he was a better fighter or who would win. If I get Jason on, I think he would win. So no, I'm not going to answer that one. But that would be good for sure. All right, where are we, Drew? Where are you there, mate? There it is. Drew Keeley, how are you there, Drew? I saw footage of the sad demise of Joe Joyce yesterday. It's nice to see people understand the reason he pulled the pin on his own fight. He's taken too much damage. It's time to enjoy retirement. Yeah, I'm with you. It was sad to see, Drew. I actually met Joe Joyce, it would have been 7 or 8 years ago, I reckon, in Vegas. I was having something to eat with the Maloney's of all people. Well, we were over there for, I reckon it was in 2017. So it would have been a year after the Olympics, I'm assuming. And we were just in the food court at one of the casinos in Las Vegas, and Joe Joyce sort of walked past. Well, it must have been his friend or manager or trainer or someone. And he came over for a chat. Seemed to be a really nice guy. I didn't like seeing that on the weekend. But look, it comes for all the fighters. And unfortunately, it was Joe Joyce's turn on the weekend. And I certainly didn't have an issue with him, putting the hand up and raising the red flag or the white flag, sorry, and calling it a day. And I think it's time to retire. And it's not like he's losing close decisions. I mean, he's taking a lot of punishment. So I'm glad that he's going to call it a day. And, enjoy retirement. He should have enough money now, you probably think, to enjoy that. But, yeah, it wasn't great to see, mate. All right, still with Drew. People seem far too sure on a Tim win versus Spence for obvious reasons. I have little confidence in picking either guy. I don't think this is as much of a lay-down pick as people are suggesting. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Drew. Look, it's so hard to pick. It is so hard to pick. Do you go with Tim, who, he's been active over the last 3 years, but he's copped a couple of brutal hidings along the way. You got Errol Spence, who he copped a similar hiding, but 3 years ago, hasn't fought since. Is it going to be good for him or bad for him? Is being out for 3 years, is it going to really hurt him, or is he that good a fighter that you don't forget to fight, and the break for 3 years to get his body right might actually help him in this fight? They've both had issues outside the ring with the teams and trainers, all that sort of stuff. So I'm with you. I don't have confidence picking either guy. I'm sticking with Tim Tszyu to win the fight, but it's definitely not a lay down, mate, for sure. I don't think it'll be easy at all. I just think Tim might not be as washed as what Spence is, because I really do think, from what I've seen in the most recent fights, that both guys are definitely they've both seen better days. I just think the fact that Tim has been a little more active will be enough to get him over the line, and the home crowd factor, of course, will be enough to get him over the line. But geez, if Spence turns up even 80% of what he was, he's going to be a handful for Tim. But I'm going to back Tim to get the win. But it's certainly not a lay down, mate. That's for sure. Who we got there? Sweet as. All right, he's with Big J. What do you got there, mate? I'm with you, Big J. The hysteria if Tim Tszyu actually beats Spence Jr. would be almost unbearable. Not sure how the fanboy YouTubers and content creators would be able to contain themselves. I'm with you, Sweet as. It's it'll be an interesting time, won't it, if he gets over the line. And again, that's not Tim's fault, but there are a lot of YouTubers out there that'll be, let's say, having a good day, I would think, and content creators. Look, I won't go too hard on some of the YouTubers out there, because they've got to toe the line as far as Tim goes, because they're all after media passes and all this sort of stuff to get into the No Limit shows and, maybe get future interviews and all that sort of stuff. So it doesn't worry me, because I'm, as I've said numerous times, I'm not really in it to interview people and be a reporter, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't interest me at all. So I can say what I want. And if they don't give me a media pass, well, all right, I'll live. I'll just buy a ticket and I'll just film it from the stands. It doesn't worry me, and give my predictions and review afterwards. But a lot of these YouTubers rely on the media passes and the interviews to be relevant. That's what they have to do. You can't come on here and bag Tim Tszyu and then ask for an interview. It's not going to happen. Or you can't come on and maybe discredit Tim or a No Limit show, or there goes the media pass, doesn't it? So, yeah, don't be too hard on the YouTubers and content creators, because they've got to play the game. They've got to play the game like everyone else, and you've just got to be careful that you don't cross the line. So, but I'm definitely with Big J as well, as far as the hysteria that will be unbearable. But again, not Tim's fault, and good luck to him if he manages to get across the line. All right, Glenn, how are you, Glenn? Where are you there, mate? All right, Glenn Tankard, how are you, Glenn? Unfortunately, everything points to a Spence win, probably by KO. Tim's last 2 fights were far from impressive, and prior to that, he was beaten by top-tier fighters, which he isn't. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Glenn. Look, again, I'm still going to stick with Tim Tszyu to win the fight, but not with a lot of confidence at all. I just think the fact that he's been active will just outweigh Spencer's 3 years out to let his body heal and his mind heal and everything like that. But it's so tough. Look, end of the day, I'll be honest, I don't really care who wins. I just want a good fight. And if Tim happens to win, hey, that's great. Being an Aussie, I'm going to be wrapped for him. But if he doesn't win, he's not good enough to beat Spence, well, so be it. I'm not going to shed 1 second sort of thought about it, to be honest. Oh, well, he wasn't good enough. Good on Spence, and we move on. There'll be a lot of Aussie fans, Glenn, and a lot of boxing reporters here as well, which will be devastated, because what do they do now? There's not really a lot. They put all their eggs in the basket with Tim, a lot of these reporters, and don't give Jai or Liam, Liam's probably a little bit different because he's a No Limit fighter, but the Jai Opatais and Maloneys of the world, they're going to have to maybe swallow their pride and hit those guys up for interviews. But look, I want Tim to win, but if he's not good enough to win, well, so be it. But I'm with you though, Glenn. His last 2 fights were far from impressive, that's for sure. Yep. And his last 2 fights against top-tier guys, he was beaten badly and stopped. So, all right. Still with Drew. where are we? Boxing fans often get mercilessly criticised by UFC fans for our dysfunctional sport, but fans are getting excited about a guy who has one win in 10 years at 38 and gets his leg blown out in 60 seconds. So dumb. I'm surprised this is the first comment we've had about the UFC, Drew, and I won't spend too much time on it because I know there'll be people that'll say, come on, we're not here to listen to about UFC. We're here to listen to you talk about boxing. So, look, as I said in the video this morning, Drew, I must admit I had a bit of a chuckle on the day. I was at the pub and we had a lounge full of people. It's probably 25, 30 people in there, and they're all up and about, cheering and having a great day. And then when Conor McGregor, and I remember as soon as he came out and threw that kick, I know everyone would have seen it, but it was like, I don't know much about UFC, but I just saw that first kick and said, well, he's injured. He's either injured himself or gone in injured. He's done. Especially when he slipped over for the second time, and you could see his opponent sort of look at the referee like, what are we doing here? You know, this guy's injured. And then when it was waved off, I definitely had Nikita and Zarafa vibes, Drew. But you're right, they go on about our dysfunctional sport. Well, how would you feel allowing that to happen? And I said in my video this morning, when it comes to Conor and also Ronda Rousey, is this the best they've got? Is this the best UFC is at the moment, where they're the two biggest events of the year? Has been Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor, two fighters way on the downside of their careers. And they all, this is the biggest two events of the year, and that's what they delivered. The Rousey fight went, about 15 seconds, and this one went about a minute. So two absolute farces. So, yeah, I'm with you. They can't really get stuck in the boxing at the moment because we've definitely had our share of moments in the sport. But the UFC had one yesterday for sure. And I know this wasn't UFC. The Ronda Rousey one wasn't UFC. So that's a little bit different, but it's still MMA. And all the build up to it, and all the glitz and glamour, and all the pay-per-view buys, and everyone going on about Conor's back. You could, again, without going into it too much, one thing I will say about it is the body language of Conor McGregor before that fight. You could see that he wasn't right. And I haven't followed UFC much over the years, but I've seen most of Conor McGregor's fights. It's probably the one event that I've always sort of watched or bought or whatever, or definitely put on at the pub. Not at the pub because he hasn't fought for 5 years, but at home. And you could see in his previous fights, he'd be just prowling up and down, and he'd be just G'ing himself up, and he'd have the hands out, and he'd really get him and the crowd going. And we saw none of that on the weekend, did we? He just looked dejected. He looked distracted, and he just knew, I think, that he wasn't right. And whether he did it in the change rooms or on his way to the ring or whatever it might have been, he wasn't right. And he knew it, and I think he knew he couldn't win, and that's why he just seemed so dejected even before the fight started. And I, with all these conspiracy theories, my theory that I sort of agree with is I think he knew he was injured, and I think he went out there and threw that big kick straight away to give him the out that he did it with that kick, because he had to went out there and just fought and tried to feel out Holloway, and you could see that he was on unsteady legs. Well, it'd be pretty obvious that he went in there injured, but he went out there and threw that big kick straight away. He's got something to fall back on in that, well, that's how I injured myself. I went up and landed on my knee and blew my knee out. Yeah, I don't buy it. I think he was definitely injured before he got in there. At 38, yeah, geez. All right. Sweet as another comment from you. Not really a Tim Tszyu fan by the looks thing, or is it Tim Kazoo as you say there? I'm not looking forward to the next 2 weeks of daily Tim Kazoo stories about how many Wheat Bix he ate for breakfast, what size shoe he wears, how many times he goes to the toilet daily, blah, blah, blah. Well, look, sweet as, I mean, I know there might be a little bit of Tim fatigue, but hey, it's a big fight. They're saying it's the biggest card in boxing history. I think that's still debatable, but overall a massive card, a massive fight. I think you can, for the next 2 weeks, at least let Tim and the Tim fans have their moment. Let them soak in the whole Tim Tszyu experience. You don't have to read it or watch it or listen to it. You just skim past it, mate, because unfortunately if you watch my channel the next 2 weeks, because every day is going to have Tim Tszyu stories, I'm going to be reporting it. That's just what I do. I cover the 24 hours in boxing unless there's another massive story that comes up either here in Australia or overseas. Unfortunately, mate, it's going to be Tim Tszyu stories for the next 2 weeks. But yeah, I just think let Tim and his fans and No Limit have their moment, especially No Limit. I mean, they've brought this massive event to Australia. I think let them have as much attention and back slaps as they can possibly get, because they put a lot on the line. They brought a big card here to Australia, so good on them. But just scroll past, mate. That's all you got to do. I know it'll be hard, but I'm sure you can do it. All right, still with Drew. What do you got there, mate? Career. Oh, yeah, there it is. It's career over for either guy with a loss as far as public interest is concerned. Spence due to consecutive losses, wear and tear. Tim due to 3 recent title losses and a loss to a Twilight Spence. Yeah, well, as I said in my walking boxing this morning, Drew, if he wins, well, a lot of doors open. If he loses, maybe a decision, maybe he continues on. If he gets stopped, I think it's all over. I don't think you'll see Tim Tszyu back. I think he'll be done, and be show coming to the end of the road for Tim. Fortunately for No Limit, they've got Liam Paro in the stable. They've got Liam Wilson, who might fight for a world title. Who knows? They might do something with Andrew Maloney. He's not signed with anyone, so you never know. But and they've got Nikita, of course, so they're going to have a void to fill if Tim doesn't get over the line. But as I said before, we seem to go through a cycle that every 5 or 6 years, someone comes along, and I'm sure there'll be someone behind Drew. Maybe it's going to be Callum Peters or someone like that, but I'm sure someone will come along. All right, Richard. Where's your comment there, mate? All right. Hey, Lynden All, UFC event was great apart from the main event. Conor is the only cash cow UFC has. I wonder if he's also dry on money, so he needs to fight like Floyd. I hope not. Geez, I would be staggered if that was the case. I know he's earned a lot of money over the journey. I know he's high maintenance, his lifestyle, but geez, surely he hasn't made the really bad decisions like Floyd has with a lot of his investments. From what I heard, Conor McGregor's actually pretty smart with his money. So I've heard with his distilleries and his pubs and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't think so. I think what this was for Conor was the last hurrah. This is it. And I think that's why I was so dejected afterwards, because I think he knows he won't be back. And he just didn't want to go out that way at 38 years of age. So, yeah, I'm hoping that's not the case, but I just think that he knew this was it for him. And I think that's also why he was dejected before the fight, because he knew it was going to be his last hurrah, and he knew he wasn't going to win. He knew he was cooked, and that's why he was so down. But yeah, I'm hoping it's not like Floyd, mate. And who's to say? Well, look, we don't know the full story about Floyd Mayweather either. I'm hoping that even if he has blown a fair portion of his money, that maybe he's at least got a couple of $100 million left that he can, I'm sure, can live on for the rest of his life if he makes some better investments and lives within his means a little bit more. How could you spend all that money? I know he blew, was it $300 or $400 million on the investment, but apparently he's earned close to $1 billion. That's still a fair bit of leeway as far as or wriggle room as far as his salary cap goes, I suppose, his bank balance, but who knows what the vultures out there have taken from him. All right, the Big J. What do you got there, mate? Dana White. All right, did you see how Dana White dealt with the McGregor controversy? Bitched about his production team giving Shakur Stevenson the wrong name. Yeah, I did see that. Better get used to that shit if he wants to be in boxing. Yeah, he wasn't happy, was he? I mean, I think... Look, it just made him and the whole organisation look pretty ordinary, didn't it? Shakur Stevenson, the big signing, the biggest name they've had, and the production guy couldn't get his name right. He called him an NBA player. I can't remember who it was, who he mistook him as. But that's the thing, though, I would have thought, though, that Dana White, does he really need to say that at the press conference? Surely he could have got stuck into his production team outside. Maybe if he was asked about it, about the mistake, maybe he could have said, yeah, look, I apologise to Shakur. It's a little bit embarrassing. I've addressed the production team about it and it won't happen again, and just move on. But for him to sort of bring it up and have this whole sort of production of bad-mouthing his, or dressing down is the word I'm after, dressing down his production team, I just thought, one, it was a little bit of show boating, but also just uncalled for. You want your staff to want to work for you. I know they made a real blunder, but just address it behind closed doors and apologise on behalf of the company and just move on. To get up there and make such a song and dance about it, I thought it was pretty piss poor from Dana. And I do agree that or I do think that the boxing part of his business is frustrating him at the moment, because I don't think he's probably getting a lot of the fighters signed that he thought he'd have signed by now. I think a lot of fighters will be looking at what happened to Jai Pataya and maybe just being a little bit tentative about going with Zuffa, although signing Shakur Stevenson and Richardson Hitchens and all those type of guys would maybe alleviate the doubts a little bit. But I just think he's a little bit frustrated. Maybe the frustrations build up when this happened. He's like, geez, I've just signed the big one, our biggest signing, and this is what we get. And how much of an idiot do we all look? But again, I just want to address it behind closed doors and not made a big deal of it to the public, because that's what we're all talking about. All right, where are we? Richard again. Where are you there, Richard? Where are we? No, I've missed that. I'll go back up. Sorry, guys. I'm getting to the end of the comments here. I'll just go up to the top and start again. All right. I think I'm at the end of it here. Sorry, guys. Been through that one. All right. Drew, Tim needs to be careful. He doesn't pull back in a predictable straight line every time he throws a punch. He's always had that bad habit, instead of exiting to the side or using a lateral movement. Yeah, I'm with you there, mate. I think he definitely needs to. Oh, look, and I think he will. He definitely can't pull out in a straight line, because that's where he's going to get caught on the counter by a very, very good fighter, an experienced fighter in Errol Spence. I'm just sort of going to bring up box rec as we're talking here, guys. Hopefully it comes up, because I accidentally shut it down before, and I just want to be able to refer to it if need be. Always comes in handy. All right, Tim Kazoo, there he is. Pretty much, I'm sure there's some comments about him. But I'm with you though, Drew. I've got a feeling that what Jeff will do is get Tim in close and tell him, if you're in close, the only time you step off is it to the left or to the right, not in a straight line. Easier said than done, because unfortunately if you get tagged or you're fatigued or things aren't going your way, you might revert back to what you did before. That's what normally happens. But I'm hoping that Jeff gets Tim inside and stays inside, unless, as I said, he's going off to the left or right and then go out that way, but not in a straight line going backwards, because Errol Spence, very, very clever fighter, and he'll tag him for sure. So, all right. Yes, thanks. I gave him $1. Hit the likes. Good stuff, mate. Yeah, Richard, Dana wants to control combat sports in general. He's dreaming. Yeah, I'm with you and Big J there. Look, I think it's frustrating him at the moment, because I just don't think he expected much resistance. And I don't know what he was expecting, really, to be honest, because you got young, enthusiastic winners in Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn. Then you've got seasoned campaigners like Frank Warren and Bob Arum. They're not going to go anywhere. So I don't know what he expected, just to come in and just sign everyone's fighters. That's the impression I get, from Dana White. And I think at the moment he looks a little bit flustered, because he's got fighters who are saying, yeah, no, that's no thanks. Great money, but I'm happy where I am. Yep. And the other promoters digging in, working together, making hard life for him. And he's almost out there by himself at the moment, because he's out there. He's got Paramount and the Zuffa thing. That's great. But you got all the other promoters all together with DAZN. So they're going to do everything they can to make life as hard as they possibly can for Dana White. And you just get the feeling that maybe, do you think that maybe DAZN might, I don't know, just a gut feeling they might help the promoters with funding, maybe up the contracts, whatever it might be, so they can keep those elite fighters under their umbrella. Because let's face it, if they lose the elite fighters because of money and go over to Zuffa, well, that makes all the promoters weaker, which makes DAZN weaker. So would they maybe just up the contracts a little bit, so that if there's a Virgil Ortiz, say, as an example, looking over at Zuffa, Oscar De La Hoya gets a few extra bucks in his contract, and he can then go to Virgil Ortiz and say, "No, we're gonna match the offer from Zuffa and keeps him under control of Golden Boy and DAZN." You think though, with the decisions they will be making, because at the end of the day, the only thing that Zuffa has really got at the moment is money. That's the only thing that's tempting all these guys over to Zuffa is the check. So if they can combat that a little bit, it's going to make it even harder for Zuffa and Paramount Sports, or Paramount, whatever they are, to to get the hands on all the elite fighters out there. All right, Richard, I'd pay to watch that Big J and McAllister. So he's taking his sweet time. At least you have Tassie Brown on your side. Yeah, did you interview him the other day, Big J? I think Tassie said something about he was going to be on your channels. Did you get the big names on there, mate? You just need to get some sort of software so you can do it properly, not on your phone. That's all. I'm sure someone will show you how to do it. All right, so we're getting to the end. I think we're into the new comments coming through. All right, still with Big J. Boxing's had way worse controversies than UFC could ever dream of. Although McGregor does his fair share of things. A bus incident in New York, his civil suit for inappropriate behaviour, and yesterday. I'm not sure, Big J. What controversies are you talking about as far as probably outside the ring or inside the ring? Inside the ring, 100%. Not so much outside the ring, I wouldn't have thought. There's obviously been a few indiscretions, I suppose. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really rating them against each other. I don't really care about what happens with the UFC, only with the boxing. But, yeah, I do remember that bus incident and a few other bits and pieces. I think didn't Connor have some instances in the pub or something where he had to go at something? I can't remember. But anyway, I'm sure they'll work it out. There's Team Batman away there, mate. Ado, what do you got there? Which 154-pound fight would you like to see the most? Boots and Virgil or Boots and Fundora? I would probably like to see Boots and Fundora, Ado. I think that's the ultimate test for both guys. Different types of fights. Boots against Virgil, I just think, look, Virgil being a Mexican fighter or Mexican-American fighter is going to be tough. We know that. But I just think his style is going to be custom-made for Boots. I just think the African-American fighters, when they fight the Mexican-American fighters, are always a little bit slicker, a bit faster with their hands, faster with the feet. And most of the time you'll see the African-American fighters get over the Mexican-American fighters without disrespecting the Mexican-Americans, all right? So, or the Mexican fighters. Whereas I think with Boots and Fundora would offer something to Boots that he's never seen ever, and obviously for obvious reasons, and likewise, Boots offers something to Fundora that he's probably never seen either. So I just think it's a really well matched up type of fight. I think Boots beats Virgil on points, but the Boots and Fundora fight could go either way, and that's what's so fascinating about it to me anyway. Glenn, evening all. Sad end for Joe Joyce. Hopefully he's made enough money to call it a day. But is Fajora really going to get a shot at Gassier for the WB? I think you meant WBA belt there, Glenn. Yeah, possibly there, mate. Yeah, I don't get it. Chisora apparently had the farewell fight, and then it was going to be maybe a rematch with Deontay Wilder, and now what, he falls into a world title fight. How's that happen? So if Gassiev is looking for some sort of credibility, well, he's gone to exactly the wrong place. I can't believe they got Chisora over there to get in the ring, and so obviously there's been talks that have been going on behind the scenes, but I just think it's ridiculous that Chisora's getting another title shot, especially after he said he'd retired, and then, as I said, was going back for maybe a second shot at Wilder, and although Wilder's obviously looking at Usyk now, but for the WBA world title, I mean, are you kidding me? It's ridiculous. All right, not a fan of Conor McGregor, Glenn. He sucks more than Canelo. Is the tall poppy syndrome thing there, Glenn? I mean, you're talking about both of them are probably still the faces of the sport, even though they've seen better days. Canelo really still is the face of boxing. He's not the best fighter in boxing, obviously, but still the face, really. They're still the biggest name in boxing. And Conor McGregor at 37, 38 is still the biggest name in UFC. So, Eminem, any news on a Cooper fight? All right, so Cooper O'Connell. So the news with Cooper is that his visa has officially come through to be able to move to the United States. So I think he's got a 5-year visa. So he's obviously signed with Samson Lukovic now. So you can expect him to start being on some big cards over there, whether it be on Pro Box TV or Sebastian Fundora undercard, maybe David Benavides undercard as well, or maybe Gabriella Fundora, who knows. But he will be on fight cards over there. So yeah, he's got a and that's been the hold up, by the way, why he hasn't been in any more fights since his American debut. He had to fly to Perth from Brisbane to get his visa, and he's got it. And yeah, he's got a 5-year visa. I think he's flying back over there pretty soon, unless he's already left. I'm not sure. I only spoke to Shannon, was it last week? I think it was. So it's all systems go, and expect to see him on some big shows over there towards the end of the year. I think Shannon might have said maybe September, looking to get him in there for his next fight. And I'd say they'll back him up before the end of the year, and hopefully he'll get 4 or 5 fights next year, and away he goes. And as I said, fight on some of these big cards, and the world's his oyster, isn't it? So, all right, Shadowbox, I've been rewatching all of Spencer's fights, and I noticed even in his prime, he has a habit of leaning on over. Is that over? His front foot a lot, and after throwing, he'll literally be hunched forward. And where's the rest of it there, mate? And then he moves back into shape. I hope Fennick has seen this and has implemented some ideas on countering, while Spence is out of position, not just swinging on his chest. Well, we'll see there, mate. We will see. We'll see if Jeff has got more to his repertoire than just being super conditioned. We'll see whether he's got a game plan as well. There's a lot of pressure on Jeff. There's a lot of pressure when you think about it. He's been chomping at the bit to get his hands on Tim since he turned pro, and I know Jeff might deny it all he wants, but I think it's pretty obvious all along. He's been so outspoken against his previous team, and I think he's always fancied that he could get more out of Tim, and that's great. I hope he does. But if he doesn't deliver and we see a better Tim, then he's going to really open himself up to some online criticism, I would say. And we've all seen that Jeff doesn't really cope well with a lot of criticism. I just hope he turns his social media off leading up to the fight, because I just don't think he needs to be distracted by that sort of stuff. So, but if he can't deliver with Tim, and we see the same old Tim that we've seen in the past, then as I said, he's going to cop it. And but there, let's see, as I said, if he's got more strings to his bow than just conditioning and mindset and everything else. All right, Mark. All right, so what's that? I was wrong. Was it Tim was handed the belt when Charlo stepped in the ring with Canelo? Tim then defended against Mendoza. Okay, maybe you're right there. Sorry, mate, if I've got that wrong. But he did still have to win the fight, though, didn't he? Or didn't he? Hang on, let's have a quick look. Maybe I'm wrong. So it says here on BoxRec, it was for the vacant WBO World Super Welterweight title. So that's what I'm going by, Mark, is that he wasn't handed the belt. I think he did have, it says here, he beat Carlos Ocampo for the WBO interim title, and then he had to actually beat Brian Mendoza for the vacant title. So it doesn't say it's for the full belt here. So according to that, it doesn't say he was actually the champion when he went in to defend against Brian Mendoza. It says here it's for the vacant WBO title. So either way, mate, it's we'll agree to disagree there. But as far as I understood it, and it says on BoxRec there that he was actually against Mendoza, it was for the vacant belt, not a defense. So all right, Richard. If only Maloney had 10% of the media attention that Tim gets. Yeah, well, that's both of the guys, isn't it? But that's life. Look, it's not only here in Australia. And look, I'm not totally, it pisses me off. Don't get me wrong. But we all know the way it sort of works. The media normally has their media darlings. And look, even back in the day, even when Jeff and Costa and a lot of these fighters were around, there was probably some others that were very, very good fighters at the time that didn't get a lot come their way as far as attention goes either. So it goes, I remember even like when Jeff Fennick was around, Jeff Harding was almost the second cousin as well. It just happens, and no different with the Maloneys. All right. Excuse me. All right. Glenn. Yeah, he's a heavy front-footed fighter. This is Errol Spence, I think. It works sometimes, but it's all he does. Crawford absolutely took advantage of that, yeah. Look, I think if you look at Errol Spence, he's pretty basic. He's pretty much a stand up and down type of fighter. He doesn't really do anything that great. I don't think he's overly fast. I don't think he hits overly hard. I just think he's a good all-round fighter. That's why I give Tim a big chance. It's not like he's coming up against Crawford, who's super fast with his hands and feet and got great boxing IQ. One thing I will probably say about Errol Spence, that probably is a strength, is his boxing IQ, but I don't see any other attributes that he has that really makes me think he's a great fighter. I just think he's a good all-round fighter with a good IQ. That's how I probably describe him. As I said, I don't think he's overly quick with his hands or feet or punches hard or has great head movement or anything like that. I just think he's just a very good overall fighter. And whether that's enough to get over Tim, well, we'll see. Glenn, Fennick interview was hilarious. The hate, the self-pitying, the obvious chip on his shoulder. Yeah, well, that was the thing, Glenn, because straight out of the blocks, he was on the offensive. I don't think the guy on Raw Sports really had a chance to even ask him a question. It was like, how are you, Jeff? Well, that was the question I suppose he got out. And then Jeff was just like, yeah, well, I'm doing all right, apart from, all these bloody idiots out there. And he sort of went off on a tangent after that. And the interviewer sort of had to pull him. Is it Ahmed, I think his name is? Had to sort of pull him back in. And Jeff would sort of stray off and get excited again. And then he'd have troubles with his phones and he'd have to get him back on and then get him sort of started again and then pull him back in the line. It was a pretty weird type of interview, wasn't it? He didn't have much good things to say about Jay McAllister. I don't know whether, Jay, you're in the chat tonight. I'd like to see what you've done wrong. I think it was something to do with the Mundine interview, wasn't it? But I can't blame Jay for that. I mean, he didn't say the comments. Anthony Mundine did. So self-pitying, yeah, that's arguable, I think, there, Glenn. I don't know. You can maybe, argue that. And the obvious chip on the shoulder, well, that's exactly what made Jeff who he is there, Glenn. And look, my thing with Jeff is, I know a lot of people, like you say he's got the chip on the shoulder. I get that. But that's what made him great. And that's what continues to make him successful. This is what makes Jeff Fennick. He has the chip on his shoulder. He's got chips on both shoulders. Don't worry about that. And that's what's so great about Jeff Fennick. Successful people like Jeff, I know he gets a little excited sometimes, or maybe goes a little bit overboard, but that's exactly what makes him who he is. The chips on his shoulders. That's Jeff Fennick. And if to take Jeff, you got to take all that along with him. And yes, I understand he does tend to get a little bit or goes a little bit overboard sometimes, gets a little bit precious and everything else. But that's just Jeff. So I've got no dramas with it. All right, Bill Hack. What do you got there, Bill? No one can say Tim beat the real Jeff Horn. Clearly obvious Jeff was very sick and clearly lost the drive he previously had. Seems like Horn and Zarafa hurt each other. Neither the same since. Well, yeah, yes and no there, Bill. Yeah, you're probably right that he didn't beat the real Jeff Horn. And I'd say that because for a couple of reasons. I think that it had the big fights. It earned the big money. I'm not so sure the desire was still there. I just think the Tim Tszyu fight was there. And he just thought he had to take it. And it was obviously a big money fight. I'm with you there. I think that Horn and Zarafa really took a lot out of each other. And I got a feeling that Jeff might have even liked to have retired after the Zarafa fight. Yeah, and I think he was sort of coaxed into the Tim fight. I don't think his heart was in it. And you could tell that right from the word go. As good as Tim was on the night, Jeff was pretty bad. I mean, I remember thinking, geez, how did this guy ever beat Manny Pacquiao? That was going through my head, and I'm sure you guys were the same. Thinking, how the hell did this guy beat Manny Pacquiao? I've just got a text from Big J. Sorry, what do you got there, mate? Tim Tszyu, are you on AI there, mate? Are you on ChatGPT? Don't always believe that. What do you got? Tim Tszyu was officially elevated to full WO champion in September 2023. After holding the interim title, he was automatically promoted to the full WBO junior middleweight champion when the previous undisputed champion, Jamal Charlo, moved up in weight to fight Canelo Alvarez. Yeah, well, I think I've got it. Look, what I will say, Big J, is I think we're both right. Because I know you are right what you say there. I remember it at the time that they said that as soon as Charlo enters the ring against, this is where it's a bit murky. They said that as soon as Charlo enters the ring against Canelo, he will be stripped of the title. But on the flip side, it had already been decided that Tim was already the interim champion, and it was whether it was who you believe, and in this case, you got your evidence there, and that's fine, but BoxRec also got their version of it as well, because you've got two scenarios. You've got Tim, obviously, with the WBO interim belt. You've got the WBO saying you will fight Brian Mendoza for the vacant belt. And then you've also got them saying, well, if Charlo steps in the ring with Canelo, we're going to strip him, which then pretty much automatically elevates Tim up as well. So he sort of got two things happening at the same time. So I'm going to call it a 0-0 draw, Big J. You are right, but I think I'm right as well. I think it was just two scenarios at the same time. I think, as I said, I think that Mendoza and Tszyu was planned to be for the vacant belt, But then the WBO have also sanctioned Charlo by saying, well, you step in that ring and you're going to lose the belt. And maybe if the Mendoza fight hadn't already been sanctioned for the vacant belt, or they hadn't been scheduled to fight, whatever it might have been, then maybe Tim just would have been elevated without fighting. But I think the fact he was already scheduled to fight Mendoza, they said, well, let's just make that for the vacant belt as well. So it's a little bit of the chicken before the egg, I reckon, Big J. But mate, you got the evidence there. But I think we're both right. Let's call it an even split. Yeah, I don't know. There was rumours too, Bill, that Jeff was sick on the night. But I just think it was more just coming down to not being motivated for the fight. I just think he was done. He had too many hard fights. I don't think his heart was in it anymore. I think he'd earned enough money, he'd been in enough wars. And I think the Tim fight was more so he was pressured into. But you're right. Horn was obviously never the same. And I don't know, Michael Zarafa, haven't been the same since. Maybe. All right, slip and rip. Lynden, what do you consider the biggest robbery in boxing history? Some of mine are way back when Roy Jones Jr. got robbed at the 1988 Olympics against Park Si-hun. Jeff Fennick versus Azuma Nelson won. Wow. Strange you should say that, mate, because I reckon I had a list there a while ago. I would say in the amateurs, or overall in boxing history, it's Roy Jones Jr., 100% against Park Si-hun. No doubt. That is the biggest rip-off in boxing history. Just so happens it was an amateur fight. That's number one by a mile. I agree with you there, mate. I would probably have Jeff and Azuma. There's some other ones there. I mean, the Chavez and Whittaker draw is probably one of the top ones. Whittaker 100% won that fight. So I don't know how it was a draw. Some will say Canelo and Triple G. I don't think it was wide enough to say it was a robbery. I think there's a lot of people saying that Triple G won. I actually thought a draw was around the mark. Just me. I don't think it was. Well, I think it was close enough that there was debate. That's what I would say. And I think if Canelo had a one, you've got to have his supporters and detractors. Triple G had a one, the same thing. The fact it was a draw, it was a little bit of just a 0-0 draw amongst the fans as well. But some other ones there. Bradley Pacquiao won was an absolute robbery. And some will say that Leonard Hagler was a robbery. I don't think so at all. I don't think, again, that was close enough. Or that was so close. That could have gone either way. Depends on how you interpret it and how you scored it. I don't think it was a robbery. It was just a close fight that went Leonard's way. But putting my Aussie hat on, mate, I definitely think Jeff Fennick, Azuma Nelson won. And Julio Cesar Chavez and Pernell Whittaker would be a close second, I think. Pernell Whittaker had a couple of those type of fights. If you followed Pernell over his journey, he fought Jose Luis Ramirez back in 1988 as well, I think it was. And he got absolutely ripped in that fight as well. So there's been lots of examples as well. But they're the ones that sort of come to mind. Sorry, but I'm not trying to tear Big J a new one. I'm just disagreeing. And I think Big J would agree. It's good to have. This is why we're on here. It's debating. I'm not trying to have a crack at Big J. I'm sure he's not trying to have a crack at me. It's just we differ. But it's better than who's Batman and Glenn. You guys normally go at it, don't you? I'm sure that'll come later. All right, Big Joe, I'll read your comment there. I know you just sent me the text, but Tim was elevated to full WBO champion when Charlo fought Canelo. Yeah, okay, we've been over that. As I said, we'll call it a 0-0 draw because you're right. The WBO made it quite clear Charlo would be stripped, but they also did have Tim and Mendoza penciled in for the vacant title. So what do they do? The 6 and 7? I don't even know what the hell that is, by the way, but we'll call it even. Glenn, Charlo ducked Tim for how long? No, I don't. Are you trying to have get a rise out of someone here, Glenn? I don't think Charlo ducked him. How could Charlo duck Tim? Come on, Glenn. I think actually, if anything, Tim was very fortuitous when Charlo pulled out of their fight, having seen what happened after that. I've got a feeling that what happened to Tim against Fundora and Murtazalev might have come a year or two earlier if he had fought Charlo, but we'll see. All right, Big J. Never thought I'd hear you say Lester Ellis was not as good as Tim Tszyu. Honestly, I never thought I'd hear you say that. Outstanding. Well, mate, I love Lester Ellis. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was, as I said before, was my favourite fighter growing up, and probably Jeff Phoenix sort of took over after that. But I'm just trying to use logic, Big J. Lester Ellis, as much as I loved him back in the day, never had a real signature win. Never had a big win. Yeah, the world title fight was there, but I mean, I think it's now sort of a universal sort of fact that one Kulyu wasn't exactly Naoya Inoue. You know what I mean? That's not Lester Ellis's fault. It was a new title and Lester won it. It was an unbelievable performance on the night, and one of my my most cherished memories as a young kid watching Lester Ellis win the title. But it doesn't stand in the way or cloud my judgment as far as what I'm thinking in this instance. And I think Tim Tszyu has been the better fighter than Lester Ellis. I think Lester Ellis initially had a lot more talent, but just never sort of got the most out of his career, Big J. And Tim Tszyu, I mean, he's I know he's fallen short against Murtazaliev and Fundora, but before that, racked up some pretty good wins. Don't forget, after he beat Harrison and Mendoza, he was hot property in the States. He was all the talk over in the States, all the talk over there. So he must have been doing something right. I know since then it's sort of changed a little bit, but he's still held in high regard over there. And I'll stand by. I do think that Tim Tszyu is the better fighter over Lester and has achieved more. So didn't think you'd hear me say it. Well, there you go. You just have. All right, slip and rip. During Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s career, do you think there was anyone at the time around his weight class that could have beaten Floyd? For me, it was a 6'1" southpaw Paul Williams. Yeah, some people say maybe Antonio Margarito, mate. I don't think Margarito would have laid a glove on Floyd Mayweather. The only thing going for him was a little bit like when he fought Pacquiao. Margarito is just the size and strength difference. That would have been the only maybe thing that would have troubled Floyd a little bit. But unlike Manny, who likes to still punch on with his opponents and likes to exchange punches, Mayweather would not have engaged Margarito at all, and I think would have won an easy decision. I think the fighter that could have given Floyd the most trouble was a fighter he actually beat at one stage, and that's Shane Mosley. If they had a fought at 135 or even 140, I think that Shane Mosley could have given Floyd a lot more troubles than he did. I think when he fought at welterweight or at 147 in 2010 that was, I was actually at that fight. Mosley was done. His heart wasn't in it. He lost to Floyd, then he lost to Mayweather. Then to Pacquiao, then to Canelo, and I don't think he turned up at any of those fights. He just looked like he was stuck in concrete against Floyd and Manny and Canelo. So, but I think if they had a fought at 135, it could have been a much different ball game. I reckon slip and rip. Definitely Paul Williams could have given him all sorts of trouble, mate, but there's no way that probably Floyd was going to fight someone like Paul Williams, I wouldn't have thought, mate. But just trying to think. Maybe a peak Oscar De La Hoya, maybe again at 135 or 140, could have been a different story. I think Pacquiao at 135 and 140 and 5 years early might have been a different story as well. They're probably the three guys. I don't think Marquez or Cotto or any of those guys would have beaten Floyd at any weight class. Any weight class he's in. But I reckon Mosley, Pacquiao, and De La Hoya could have given him a totally different fights. And don't forget that Oscar was awfully close to beating him at 147. I think at 135 or 140 could have been a bit different. And there's of course Costa Tszyu, although so he would have been around his peak 2001 to 2003 and 4. And Floyd was around then. So yeah, maybe Costa. Maybe. Shadow Boxer, what's that there, mate? What did Jay McAllister do to piss off Fennec? Yeah, I'd like to know. If you're in there, Jay, let us know. I'm sure you've commented down below if you're there, but next time I'll talk to him, I'll ask him. All right, Big J, that'll be a great video, you and me ranking our world champions. Look forward to it. All right, okay. You got to be able to back up your opinions there, Big J. You just can't say that one was better than the other. I want facts. I want detailed, in-depth analysis of why a certain champion is better than another champion, not just because. Oh, he's better than him because. I don't want that. I want, I think this, and here's all the reasons to back it up. I don't mind debating, but you've got to know what you're talking about, not just a gut feeling, okay? I'm sure you'll be fine. All right, Ray Lee. Evening all. Now that PBC has a deal with DAZN, would it be worth having the ultimate subscription with DAZN? Spence versus Zoo card is on the DAZN at no extra pay-per-view cost. Yeah, 100% it is, Ray Lee. Now with 5 different promoters on that platform, now with PBC and Top Rank about to begin their shows as well, or have they already done one? I'm not sure. But to have all those promotional firms under the one umbrella, definitely worth it, Ray Lee. I think now that they've got all these promotional firms under that one umbrella, I think you won't see the likes of Wilder and Chisora on those cards anymore. I think they were just sort of filling gaps now with Top Rank and PBC and who else to say? PBC, Top Rank, and whoever else is under there now. I think you'll start seeing some really good pay-per-views there. It'll be well worth the money. What's that? Big J McAllister dared to criticise Fenix's training record. Yeah, I thought I did see bits and pieces of that. Maybe I didn't watch the whole thing. I can't remember. All right, I agree with Big J, says Bill. Everyone overreacts to Tim, especially the host of Deep Dive. Oops, I'm in trouble. All in fun team. Do I overreact? Okay, I wouldn't have. If I've looked like I've overreacted, it's not intentional because I'm certainly not a Tim Zoo fanboy, Bill. I just call it the way I see it. I think if you watch this channel all the time, you'll see that I've given him all the credit when he's deserved it, but I've also been very critical when he's deserved it. So I don't. Well, I would maybe I come across the wrong way, but I certainly don't think I'm a fanboy of Tim, Bill. I try and call it the way I see it. But anyway, that's your prerogative. Yeah, I'm with you, Glenn. I thought he was just asking normal questions, and Anthony was the one that sort of went off about Jeff's training record. But anyway, all right, Shadow Boxer. This is a random question. There was an Aussie boxer who spent his time on Twitter calling out Danny Green for having him bashed. Okay, even wrote an ebook. Used to have shaved just one side of his face. Do you know him? I remember that guy, Shadow Boxer. That was it 5-6 years ago or something like that, maybe? I do remember that. I don't know anything about what he's talking about. I've never heard anyone mention it or discuss it, anything like that. But I do remember seeing, it might have been a Facebook post or something about him saying something like that. So we're accusing Danny of something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm sure he's mentioned on there. I can't remember what he said, but he did throw some accusations at Danny, but I don't think Danny ever responded. And yeah, I'm not quite sure the basis of it all, mate. Yeah, Big Bangy. Jeff didn't look overly healthy, but let's hope he's okay. Shadow Boxer didn't have heart surgery not long ago. I think it was, 3 or 4 years ago, Shadow Boxer. He lost a fair bit of weight there. Seems like he's in, well, better condition now. It looks like he's put a lot of that weight back on. He probably didn't have a great camera angle in the car, by the way, or wherever he was. It was sort of down low, and he sort of looked all chest and a small little head, didn't it? But I did say on the video the other day, they probably should make him, or his family should make him a little podcast room at home. So when he's going to do an interview, he penciled in the time when he's at home. So he's not out on the phone or wherever. Just put him in a little podcast room. All he needs is a little closet or a spare bedroom or something like that, or even just a corner of the house. And I'm sure he's got a spare bedroom in his house. It's a big mansion. Just do what I've done here and put a bit of soundproofing in there, and away you go. Get himself a good camera and a microphone. I'm sure you know someone that can set him up. Jay McAllister, why don't you give Jeff a call and hook him up for a podcast room, mate, and set him up, because that would make a lot more sense. So if he gets a request for an interview, make a time and a day and time and everything else, so he can sit down nice and relaxed and have a professional setup that he can speak properly on. I think that would, because I mean, it just doesn't make him look good. I think he looks a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. He gets a bit flustered using his phone, and I don't think he can fully relax and speak what he's thinking properly, and that's maybe why he comes across as a little bit sort of out there. I just think if he was nice and relaxed and comfortable on a proper setup, I think we might see a little bit different sort of version of Jeff Fenech. So if you know Jeff and you're a little bit sort of able to set him up with a proper studio, then hook him up. Big J, for the record, I've got Tim by 4th round TKO. Okay. Spence will age a decade overnight, but with the Jeff interview and the training videos I've seen, it's a little concerning. Yeah, we'll see. BJ. Look, again, I think Tim will win. I don't think it'll be that early. I'm probably thinking maybe 8 or 9 rounds. I think he could stop Errol Spence. I think Spence will definitely be on his game early. I think Tim's going to have to work his way inside and let maybe the air go out of the tyres, a little bit of Spence, a little bit of sting go out of the fight after sort of 4 or 5 rounds. And I can see him really embracing the Jeff mentality and getting in close and really going to work inside. And you can see that with the training videos that the method that Jeff's sort of bringing is just punch at all costs. Do not allow yourself to be tied up or clinched or anything like that. You got one hand free, you just keep punching. You can see it in some of his spars. So I think that's going to be the battle plan going in. Keep the pressure on, keep punching, hopefully use a bit of head movement and some now sort of getting inside. But if you get inside, you do not stop punching no matter what. And you just keep putting the pressure on him for the whole way, getting conditioned enough that he can fight for 12 rounds at that frenetic, well, I was going to say frenetic pace. You might call it phonetic pace because that's how Jeff used to fight, and just keep on him the whole fight and just wear him down. And you can see when, if Errol starts to clinch and hold and everything else, just keep going and rough him up and hopefully overwhelming him later in the fight. That's what I think the game plan is going to be. All right, I really like Tim versus Cully. I like Tim's chances there. Yeah, this Cully was pretty impressive in his last fight, though, wasn't he? Whether he can back that up a second time, Tim's got a lot better chance of beating Cully than he has of Ennis or Ortiz or Fundora, obviously. So it's definitely a good fight for him, and yeah, he would have a good chance of winning that. Drew. The fight for career survival is more than an interesting narrative to drive this fight. No more narratives for either guy if they lose, but the crossroads one more than fits the bill. This is the ultimate crossroads fight, Drew, because the winner goes through the crosswalk. The crossroad. The loser doesn't even make a decision whether he turns left or right. I think it's game over. Again, it depends on the result. If it's a decision win to either guy, the loser could maybe regroup. Not so sure Errol Spence has probably got long-term ambitions. I think he's just after a couple of big money fights and then that'll be it. The thing I'm looking at as well too, when I think about the fight, is Keith Thurman against Sebastian Fundora. I know Fundora is this massive guy with a height and reach and it's a totally different sort of thing, but I'm just thinking a guy that had been out for so long, so inactive, and finally come up against an active fighter, an elite fighter, and was just dominated. And that's not to say that Tim will do the same against Errol, but I just have those vibes about it that, Tim being even, like he's fought 7 times since Errol Spence last fought. And even though he's had those 3 losses, he's been consistently fighting and learning and everything else. And yeah, that's what sort of makes me sort of lean towards him. But that the Thurman fight against Fundora is, again, what makes me slightly lean towards Tim. All right, Big J. Charlo did Tim a favour by not fighting him. Would done exactly the same as Barkram did to him, a 3rd round KO. Actually, probably worse, maybe a 2nd round KO. I'm not so sure it would have been that early, Big J, but I definitely would have favoured Charlo to stop Tim. Yeah, I'm probably thinking 6 or 7 rounds. But yeah, you quite possibly could be right there, mate. I just think with Barkram, with Tim against Murtazalov, I just don't think he rated him at all and just walked out there and thought he'd steamroll him and just walked into that first big bomb. And after that first one, it was just a matter of time. He was never going to come back from that. Didn't do himself any favours, by the way, of continually trying to come forward after he'd been dropped a couple of times. I don't know what he was thinking. I just would have thought his trainer in the corner, his team in the corner, was said, Tim, for God's sake, take a round off. Do not engage with this guy. Get on your bike and just move. Do not engage. Take a round. He would have probably needed 2 or 3 rounds really to try and get any semblance of his lateral thinking back, because he would have been concussed, no doubt. So I still think it would have been a matter of time. But for him just to walk forward against Murtazalov after being dropped 2 or 3 times, I just couldn't get past that. But I just think against Charlo, he would have been a lot more cautious. Yeah, he would have respected Charlo a lot more and maybe bided his time for 2 or 3 rounds before engaging with Charlo. But I'm with you, Big J. I do think that he would have probably stopped him at some stage. Bill, we all want to see Tim win to keep pushing through the past 3 losses. Keep pushing through the last 3 losses. He deserves this. Yeah, yep. Maybe Bill, but it's all up to him now, mate. Glenn, Tim before the Fundora fight. Nah, it would have been a close fight either way. Charlo ducked him. Yeah, I don't think Charlo ducked him. I just think the bigger fight come up and he took it. All right, Mutsy, thanks for the change of direction here. What do you think about Wilson versus Fulton? Good question, Mutsy. Oh, look, Fulton was very unimpressive in his last fight against Sharky Foster, but Foster is a current world champion and a very good fighter. So I don't think there's any real sort of thing wrong with losing to Sharky Foster. Liam Wilson can be hit. Fulton can bang a little bit. Tough fight for Liam Wilson, Mutsy. Look, based on what I saw in the last fight, I think Liam will win, but I'm not game enough to say he will win. I think he can win. I've got a little bit of an uneasy feeling that it could even be a 3-0 sweep to the US on the night. I don't know. I'm 100% positive that Jamal Charlo obliterates Cohen Mazzuti, and I don't like to say that because I really like Cohen and his outlook and the way he fights and this, fight anyone mentality. I get it, but that'll only get you so far. And I think Charlo will, if he really wants to, could get Cohen out of there in a couple of rounds. This is my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. As far as this fight goes, though, I think all I'll say again is, Mutsy, is I think Liam can win. I'm not going to say he will because I'll be honest, my gut feeling says Fulton maybe just shades it. But I'm really hoping that Liam gets the win, mate, because I think he's earned another crack at the world title. I think he's been active. He's fought some good fighters. I'm really hoping he wins. But Stephen Fulton, if he turns up even 75% of himself, he's still a very, very good fighter. I think he just might have a little bit too much polish for Liam. But I really hope I'm wrong and Liam Wilson gets the win, mate, because, as I said, I think he's more than earned the fight or earned the victory in a world title shot. And I think Fulton's there ready to be taken. So let's hope he gets the win. Big J, Charlo did duck Tim as Tim was a WBO mandatory. Definitely give credit to the WBO stripping Charlo of the belt for fighting Canelo. So, Big J, you're telling me that Charlo ducked Tim to fight the number one fighter in the sport at that time, Canelo Alvarez. Don't worry about Tim. We don't want to fight Tim, but it's all right. We'll duck Tim to fight Canelo Alvarez, mate. Canelo Alvarez 4.5 years ago, when he was pretty much at his peak. So we'll duck Tim so we fight Alvarez. Mate, have you ever heard of the business of boxing? It is a business, mate. It's not all about what you or the other fans out there want to see. All right, it's about what makes sense. And Charlo fighting Alvarez for about 10 times what he would have got paid to fight Tim. Do you blame him for fighting? Mate, Charlo did not duck Tim's. That's laughable. Oh, gee. And you're right. The WBO was well in their rights to strip Charlo. No problems. He was mandated to fight Tim and chose to fight Canelo. So they did the right thing. I'm with you. They should have stripped Charlo for doing that. No dramas. That's why the belts are there and rankings are there. And you want to go outside those parameters, well, you lose the belt. No dramas. But come on, mate. Charlo ducking Tim. Oh, geez. Now I've heard it all, Big J. I know you like to be a little bit controversial, mate, but that is bordering on pretty silly. That Jamal Charlo ducked Tim Tszyu to fight Canelo Alvarez. Geez, come on, mate. I hope you've got some better comments down the list there. Jesus. Glenn, do you agree? Just maybe give Tim some credit for making Charlo duck like he did. Mate, are you on the Big J train? Come on. How can you possibly say that Charlo ducked Tim Tszyu to fight Canelo Alvarez? Oh, my God. Yeah, we would have got maybe $2 million to fight Tim. We probably got 15 to 20 million to fight Canelo, but we're ducking Tim. We're ducking Tim. You guys sound like a lot of the simps out there that love Tim and he can't do a thing wrong. I mean, come on, guys, that is ridiculous. All right, let's move on. I need a drink after that. Ducked Tim to fight Canelo. All right, now I've heard it all. All right, J Beebs. Hope you got something that makes a little bit more sense. Fundora is backing Zoo. Bud is picking Spence. There might be a case of them rooting for fighters they beat to make their wins better. Yeah, probably J Beebs. I think Bud and Spence go back away. I mean, they've been rivals, of course, before they fought, and there was this thing between them and everything else. But I think there's also been a really deep-rooted respect for each other coming up. And a lot of those really heated rivalries are really based around respect. And I think Bud and Spence, for what was going on, still really thought a lot of each other. And I think with Fundora, though, yeah, he might just be backing Tim. I don't know. Who knows what? Maybe he knows he's boxing J Beebs and he actually thinks he can win. But yeah, it could be a case of making the wins look better. I don't know. All right, Big J, No Limit deserves every bit of praise for getting this card done. I'm trying to think of a bigger card, and I'm in Australia talent-wise. I'm trying to think of a bigger card in Australia talent-wise, and I'm struggling. Look at a few of the first No Limit shows, Big J. They were pretty good. If you look, in my opinion, if you take away the main event factor of Zoo versus Spence, which is a massive, massive fight, regardless of how you look at it and where they're at, it's still the name Zoo versus Spence. It's still a massive fight. I'm not that stressed about the undercard. I think it's great that we've got Fulton over here and Jamal Charlo, but mate, the Fulton and Liam Wilson fight is a good fight. It's certainly not any super fight. And Charlo against Mazzudia, I don't know how you could see that as a... I'm sorry to be having to go at you tonight, Big J, but you got the most comments there. I don't know how you could see Charlo and Mazzudia as a big fight. I don't see it as a big fight at all. I see it as a massive mismatch. Redder and Fleming is a good fight, but for me, it's not a massive fight. I can't wait to see it, but I don't know. I just look at a few of those earlier fights as far as quality of matchups, and probably, well, I suppose maybe what you got to look at is you might be right that it is on paper the biggest card that No Limit's put on, but I reckon as far as those real quality 50-50 fights on a card, I think there's been better. And one of those cards, it was the one I was at, and that was the Tony Harrison card. I'm just going to reel this off. And again, I know they haven't got as big a names on there. You're only talking about the A side, by the way. Stephen Fulton, Jamal Charlo as the undercard fighters, the big names, okay? Liam Wilson, okay, good fight. Redder and Fleming is a good domestic fight, but it's not really a career-defining big, massive fight, if you get what I mean. And the rest of the card, I think, is just average. This is the fight for me that I think is the card. Where is it? If it'll come up. All right. This is Tim Tszyu versus Tony Harrison. At the time, remember, Tony Harrison, former world champion, had beaten Jamal Charlo, was the biggest name to come here to fight Tim Tszyu. So that was a massive fight in itself. On the undercard, Sam Goodman, TJ Doheny. Isaac Hardman, Rowan Murdoch. Paulo Acuso, well, he fought the Cuban, went the distance, good fight. Colm Mazzudia, Ben Marnie. Nikita Tszyu, Bo Belbin. And Chanel Dargan fought on there as well and fought Courtney Martin. I can't really remember too much about that. For me, as far as the best overall card with the best matchups Australia-wise I'm talking about, I think that card trumps this card. As I said, I think Tszyu and Harrison at the time was probably maybe not as big as what Spence and Tszyu is. But Harrison, remember, was being pumped up as the guy that beat Charlo and was a former world champion. And as I said, look, Goodman fought for a world title. Doheny's fought for world titles. After that fight, would go on to fight in a way, and I think he fought another world championship fight as well after that. Hardman, Murdoch, great fight. Mazzudia, Marnie, great fight. That, for me, is the best card that No Limit have put on. But just me. All right, correct me if I'm wrong, says Big J, but was there a dry spell between Jeff Hardy 94 and Mundine 03 for born and bred Aussies being world champions? Just curious because that's like a decade. Yeah, good call, Big J. Well, we obviously had Costa Tszyu. He was the big one, but obviously not born and bred. So Costa Tszyu filled that void. As far as actual Aussies go, we had Jeff. Jeff fought for the world title in 96. So he was still around. He came back, fought Holiday in 96. Yeah, it was 96. You might be right, actually, Big J. Maybe we did have a bit of a spell. But you had, I'm thinking of Daniel Gill. He was well after that, wasn't he? Yeah, I think so. We had Troy Waters fought for the world title a couple of times as well. But as far as winning world championship, yes. But you had a massive name in Costa Zoo there that more than filled the void, Big J. And I don't think anyone even noticed that we didn't have any born and bred world champions. All right. Explicit. What do you got there? Just seen IBA said Bivol declined Better Beef trilogy, even offered him double. There you go. I thought that was in the contract, mate. Explicit. I thought that was, excuse me, it was part of the contract that Better Beef had the option for a trilogy. Well, there you go. Contracts are made to be broken. But yeah, I'll look into that, mate. I didn't see that. All right, J Beebs, can you rank the Aussies on the Spence Zoo cards likelihood of winning their respective fights? For me, it's Wilson, Zoo, then Cohen. Agree. All right. All right, the Aussies against the Americans. I would say the likelihood, yes, I would say. Yes, I would probably agree with that, mate. As far as being a percentage, I would say Wilson probably 51% to beat Fulton if he's going to win. Zoo, Spence, 50-50. I think for Jamal Charlo and Cohen Mizzou, I reckon it's 95-5. I don't think I see Cohen standing a chance. Unless Jamal Charlo comes in and hasn't bothered to train, or he's had some domestic problems, or he's been arrested or done something. That's the only way I think that, or he carries Cohen. That's the only chance I see that this fight goes past 2 or 3 rounds. And again, I don't like saying that because I like Cohen, but I just can't see how that fight ends any other way than a bad stoppage or KO loss to Cohen. All right, Matzi. Eddie saying they had been talking to Fundora after the Zayos fight. Pricked my ears. I'd love to see that fight. Yeah, they did. Something been talking to Fundora after. Yeah, with Boots, yeah. And I think, there's all the talk there for a couple of days, but then Samson Lukovic, as he seems to do, Matzi, poured cold water all over it and said, nope, we're going to fight our mandatory, and we'll worry about Boots tennis probably next year. So, and that what makes me think that we might get Boots and Ortiz later in the year, and then the winner of that, you would think, would be after Fundora, which is why I suppose, having said that, it's if Tim wins, it's going to have to be Josh Kelly or nobody, I would probably think. Big Bang. Fundora went up another level for the second fight with Tim and don't see anyone beating him. He's just way too tall. Should be nicknamed the Beanpole. I must admit I laugh, Big Bang, where there's actually fans out there that complain about the advantages that Sebastian Fundora has over his opponents. I just got to laugh. You got to remember, guys, it's not about who's got the most physical advantages. It is a weight-based sport, okay? So whether you're tall, short, fat, thin, whatever, it's about weight, not about your physical attributes. So I've got to laugh when I see that. But he did rise another level, mate. I think Tim made it a little easier for him a little bit too, though, is that he wasn't cautious at all. Tim, you remember in the first fight, he was a little bit more calculated, made Fundora lead a little bit as well, and then he was countering him. In the second fight, you could just see Tim was just biting down in the mouth guard and just letting it all hang out, and just easy pickings for Fundora in the end. So, but he fought a great fight and was so improved. All right, Glenn. I'll be honest. I think Boots versus Fundora will be my favourite fight in boxing right now. So many intangibles. Yeah, I'd have it number 2, Glenn, behind Jai and Benavides. But yeah, great fight. Explicit. I want to know if DAZN will still be with TNT after the Paramount Warner Brothers deal. Paramount would have TNT, HBO, and TBS, and Zuffa will be showcasing the cards on those channels if it happens. I thought TNT was with Amazon Prime, Explicit, and HBO aren't part of it anymore. As far as just the movies and stuff, but HBO obviously aren't doing boxing anymore. Yeah, I don't know how it all works, because I know obviously HBO aren't doing boxing, and TNT's with Amazon Prime as far as I know. And that's obviously PBC and TNT on Amazon. I'm not sure how it all works, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I won't comment on that because I can't say for sure about that, mate. But as far as I know, yeah, TNT was on Amazon. Glenn, back to Fennec. He's panicking a bit because he's not getting the results in training he thought he would. Apparently, it's all about Tim being happy. Yeah, well, he does say that a lot, Glenn. But yeah, I don't know. I think from what I gathered from the interview the other day, I think Jeff's pretty happy with the way Tim's going at the moment. And Tim, look, has spoken like very highly of Jeff Fennick, as did I saw the other day that Nadal Hussain put out a video of Jeff back in the day showing him some pointers. He rates him very, very highly as a trainer. So I think maybe a lot of people just think Jeff is just going to teach Tim just to go in there and just try and sit on Spencer's chest and wear him down. I've got a feeling he's got a little bit more to offer, but this is his opportunity, because up until now he's been criticised for not having success in big fights. This is his chance. Not to mention he's been chomping at the bit to get Tim Tszyu under his umbrella for a long time, Jeff, and now he's got his opportunity. So, yeah, Benavides Opataya says Mutzi. Glenn says he's given up on that fight, and for the record, is it? I think Jai just steamrolls David, and he knows that. Let's hope so. All right, Drew, I kind of feel like a title shot would be 2 years away for Tim if he beats Spence and stays active and continues to win. It feels like nepotism if he gets a shot sooner, but it would be great. Yeah, well, mate, ratings, got to remember, don't have anything to do with whether you deserve or get a world title shot. We've seen that before. Well, Tim himself, he came off a loss to Fundora and got the title shot with Barkram Murtazaev straight away. And we've seen other fighters similar. We've got Teofimo Lopez getting a shot at Roller Ramiro coming off the loss to Shakur Stevenson. So I don't think it's 2 years away. I think, as I said before, I think the WBA, WBC, and WBO are all going to be tied up probably for maybe 12 to 18 months. But I think the IBF belt is the one. But having said that, I think someone said before, Tim doesn't want to go for the IBF belt. That's the other thing as well. He doesn't want to go for the IBF belt because of the rehydration clauses. So he's in a little bit of a rock and a hard place, isn't he? I've just got a feeling that if he wants a fight or a shot at the title, it's going to have to be for the IBF, because he's not going to fight Fundora a third time. That's just not going to sell. And Fundora, I doubt, would go back there. The only chance he has is Boots Ennis, but if he fights Ortiz and then they're going to fight Fundora, and it's just this little merry-go-round they're going to have for the next 12 to 18 months. So, unfortunately, the IBF's the only way he goes, unless he goes to 160. Glenn is WBO number 1. He'll get a shot next year if he wins. Unification fights override rankings, though, Glenn. So let's just say Ortiz gets his shot at Ennis at the end of the year, and then he decides he wants to have a unification with Fundora, because by that rationale, if Tim was number 1, he would then get the next shot. Let's just say Boots beats Ortiz. He would be mandated to obviously fight Tim after that. But if Fundora then says, well, I'm ready for a unification fight, that fight overrides Tim's fight. So it could be, again, the second half of 2027 that Tim might get a shot at the belt. So it's a long time. If he gets over Spence, well, he might have to have at least another couple of fights in that time. So who knows? But yeah, it's some decisions to be made. But that seems to be the track they're all on. All right, Sean, DAZN and the Nine Network just paid $5.6 billion for NRL rights. Wish they could put a fraction of that into Aussie boxing. Yeah, Sean, great point, mate. Great point. I suppose the issue is, though, is that the sponsors love NRL. They love AFL. I'm not sure what the AFL one is. I know NRL now has the bigger contract than the AFL has. But either way, they probably have, maybe $11 billion between them. There's not enough money to go. And then you throw in cricket and soccer and basketball and netball, and not so much netball, but they're all after sponsorship dollars. And unfortunately, Aussie boxing just doesn't attract sponsors that want to put the hand in the pocket, where NRL and AFL and cricket and all that have sponsors lining up. So, yeah, but you're right, mate. Even, was it 5.6 billion? Is it over 8 years? I think it is. That would make sense. 800 million a year. Does that make sense? 800. Yeah, that would make sense. Jeez, just 10 million. $10 million would put on probably 5 world title fights here in Australia. Not to mention just the domestic fight. Imagine just them giving a promoter, and whether it was No Limit, saying he's $10 million, but we will have someone that's going to be over there helping you matchmaking. So we don't want to just throw our money away. We want to have a say in the content. Wow. Because they obviously get a say with the NRL and AFL and everything else, because they obviously get the content they're after every single week. And they have a say in when the games are structured and when the grand finals are played and the nights are played and everything else. Where in boxing, they had a say as well. Just 10 million of that amount of money, how much good would that do? But that goes to show the priorities are, mate. But it's a good point you made there. Just a small little 0.0 something of a percent would make all the difference in Australian boxing, and they still won't put their hand in the pocket. Sean, one thing about our Jeffrey Fennick he can't get angry about, it's the ability to pass the time. Yeah, that joke's been going for a while, Sean. All right, Big Bang. Jeff just wants everyone bowing down to him, but forgets what a grub he has been. And, well, I'm not going to go that far, Big Bang. I know he hasn't got the greatest reputation outside the ring, but I try and focus on what he was like in the ring, mate. And as I've said a few times, the times I've met him, he's been unbelievable to me and gave me all the time, treated me great. So I only treat people the way they treat me, and I have not one bad word to say about Jeff Fennick. Never will. All right, Richard. Glenn Kelly didn't get much media attention either. That fight against Jones Jr., granted he got stopped in 7, was a great Aussie fight. Yeah, well, we've had some monumental fights, haven't we, over the journey with the big names. I mean, we talk about Danny Green fighting Jones Jr., but so did Glenn Kelly, and, Horn fighting Pacquiao, and Kambosos fighting Lopez, and obviously with Tim with Fundora, and Murtazaliev, and Jeff Horn with Terence Crawford, and these types of guys. I mean, geez, and Pacquiao. I mean, it's just been monumental over the journey that some of the guys that these Aussies have fought. So they've stepped up numerous times. Shannon Taylor against Shane Mosley Jr. when he was the number 1 fighter in the sport as well. Wow. All right, Drew. Unfortunately, we all need to come to terms with the fact that the media line up to smell the rectum of the zoos every time they fart. The mainstream media don't and never will know better. No, they don't. Let's just say they know where the bread's buttered, Drew. That's all I'll say. Wow. Big Bang. One day Jeff come out to the gym to watch Jai spar thinking he's the king. Well, he was the king, Big Bang. He was the king. Explicit. Could you argue Zufus roster is better than Golden Boys? No, you couldn't argue that, Explicit. I mean, they got Shakur Stevenson. And, well, who have they got? Shakur Stevenson, Jai Pataya, Richardson Hitchens, and Jason Maloney. Let's have a quick look at Golden Boys. I'm going to go over time here tonight, I know. But anyway, I just want to have a quick look at the Golden Boy promotions. I don't think so. I've got Victor Ortiz straight off the bat, Gabriela Fundora straight off the bat. They're still pretty big names. All right, let's have a quick look. We've got... All right. All fighters. Okay. Oh, well, I'll have to quickly go through them there. Hang on. Where are we? I just want the champions, guys. I don't want... all right. There's way too many there. Way too many there. Unless they've got the champions up the top. World champions. There you go. Where are we? Ricardo Sandoval, flyweight. Gabriel Fundora. Oscar Colasso. Virgil Ortiz Jr. Ryan Garcia. I think it's already Golden Boy boys and girls. They're probably... they're their only world champions, though. No, I think Colozzo, Garcia, and Ortiz Jr. alone, I think, is better than Explicit. The Zuffa roster Explicit. Although it's a close one, isn't it? It's a close one. Let's just say it's arguable. It's arguable. All right, Big J. Maloney Franco 2 in Las Vegas will have to be up there for the biggest robbery. Yep, headbutt. Yep, the 1980 Olympics was avenged for something that happened between the US and Koreans at the 84 Olympic Games. Yeah, and also the fact that South Korea were hosting the event too. They needed a gold medal winner. They needed one. Yeah, I believe Andrew's loss here in Australia was one of the biggest rip-offs ever. Says Bill, that was the Guevara fight. Yep. He was doing Big Bang. This is Jeff. He was doing a promotional thing with Coffs Harbour back when he was fighting. Glenn, me, and my mate went to the resort where he was staying to meet him, and we were told to F off. Thanks, Jeff. Oh, that's not real good. Well, again, mate, you can only treat people the way they've treated you, and if that's the way he's treated you, mate, then I respect your decision there. All right, Furian Survivor. Do you think Tim's punch resistance is gone? I can understand him not recovering from the Murtazaliev left hook. However, he was hurt on numerous occasions by Fundora before the end. To some extent, yes. I do believe his punch resistance has eroded. Yep. Has it gone? No, I don't think so. But has it been eroded? 100% it has. Yep, it's been eroded. You know, the amount of times the knees buckled against Fundora and obviously against Murtazaliyov. I still don't think he didn't really like cop a lot from his last two opponents, but even in those fights, I still think he looked a little shaky. And you'd almost see a couple of times that if he had you could sort of see with his the way he fights now that he could be easily shook and hurt. I'm hoping that Jeff has changed a lot of that by making him a lot bigger, stronger, and taking the focus right away from punch placement and technique and just making him hard. That's what's going to get over Errol Spence. But yeah, I think it's definitely eroded, mate. Drew, there's a strong case to say if the Spence-Zoo fight becomes a war, the winner might be further expired than what they would like due to the turmoil they have suffered in recent years. Yep. Yeah, I don't think either one of these guys... Well, I was going to say I don't think either one of these guys would really want a war, but you think that is the way Tim's being trained. Yeah. Yeah, and I think Spence is going to be quite happy to try and pick Tim off from a distance. I did see his interview the other day, Errol Spence, and he does seem pretty happy with the talk that Tim's just going to come forward and go at him. I think he did say that if he comes at me like that, like he did with Murtazaliyov, it's going to be lights out pretty early. So I think Errol would like Tim to actually come at him, and whether Tim can pull it off as far as coming at him, but also having his defense nice and tight and picking his shots well, we'll see. Explicit, here's the best question yet. Who will win the World Cup? Oh, jeez. France, Spain, England, and Argentina. Mate, I have not watched 1 second of the World Cup, mate, so I couldn't tell you. I have no... France, Spain, England, and Argentina. I've heard France are pretty good. Look, in a weird way, I'm sort of hoping... they all win in different ways. England, I would love to see win because I know how desperate they are to bring it home, as they say, or is it coming home, whatever it is. I know how desperate they are to win it. Then you've got Messi for Argentina. It'd be great for them to win it with last time for him. Spain, well, I've got a little bit of Spanish in me, so maybe I'll claim that as far as the Spaniards. And France, yeah, apparently they're a pretty good teams too. So I'll go with France to win. There you go. Oh, thanks, Frankie. What do you got there, mate? I can't love the channel. Can't catch everyone due to work, etc. Love the community and different respectful opinions. No worries, Frankie. Really appreciate that, mate. And don't be shy with your opinions there, mate. Eminem. If either Niika or Masson go on to win the IBF total, I'll be claiming them as an Aussie. No doubt we will, Eminem. I'm not. I think a lot of both fighters. I know Masson especially is based here now, but nah. I'll put them in the same category as a Conor Wallace or Costa back in the day or Victor Chenian. So, nah, I'm not claiming them. Frankie, totally agree with your opinion on Mosley. He was one of my favourite fighters around that 135 weight in the day. Yep, 100%, mate. Joe, you don't overreact. Like your honest opinion. Thanks, Joe. By the way, I haven't agreed with everything you've said. Great show. Thanks very much, Joe. Well, mate, look, I'm never going to get on here and get bent out of shape because people disagree. Never. And I've said it time and time again. I don't care if people disagree. Just know what you're talking about. Okay? I just don't like the people that say, oh, you're full of shit and you don't know what you're on about. Well, okay. Well, that's what I have a problem with. If you say, then I disagree with you and here's why, no problem. I'm happy to hear it. We might go back and forth about it and we'll have our point, but I've got full respect for people that just know what they're talking about. Whether it's boxing, football, politics, whatever, you have your own views. I don't care. Just be educated. Know what you're talking about. Just don't tell me I'm full of shit because you think I'm full of shit. All right? Disagree, but do it properly. Like old mate Big J does there and a few of the others too. No dramas at all. You just got to be able to back up what you're saying. All right, Drew, who do you think from different eras had the higher possibility of being a bona fide elite superstar? Tony Ayala or Edwin Valerio? Good question. Unfortunately, both guys self-destructed before their primes. High possibility of being a bona fide elite superstar. Well, Tony Ayala, they really tried to make him a superstar, didn't they? But obviously he had all sorts of dramas outside the ring. Edwin Valerio, I think, could have been the more marketable guy. He could have been the Naoya Inoue of his time, I think. Just with that deadly power. I know he fought a lot of spuds, don't get me wrong, but he just had that one-punch power. He had that personality. The only thing that probably went against him, though, I don't think he spoke English at all. Tony Ayala was was very sort of marketable as far as being a Mexican-American type of fighter. Different reasons. I think Tony Ayala would be the more marketable as far as his image goes, but Valero would have been the more marketable as far as the way he actually fought. So, yeah, and both 100%, like you said, they're self-destructed, which was a real shame. Yeah, Glennie was a mental case, that's for sure. Who's that? Johnny Nocta. Was the guy that accused Danny of shit. Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. Glenn, if Tim's plan is to go front foot short to mid-range with Spence, he's going to get knocked out. He just doesn't have the mechanics or technique to do that. Yeah, well, that's what they're talking about, mate. So we will see. Let's hope that Glenn let's hope, Glenn, that Jeff, gets him to give him some different angles and just a different look at it. If he just has him coming straight ahead, trying to sit on his chest like Jeff used to do, I'm with you. It could end really badly for Tim. But if he just takes his time and uses some head movement and gets in close and stays in close, then it might be a different story. We'll see. Mr. Gentleman, sir, what do you got, mate? Saturday night's fights at the Melbourne Pavilion organised by the Alice team were exceptional with a full capacity venue and great atmosphere. Tough specific results are not recalled. It was blind. I didn't know about that, mate. But yeah, they always put on good shows, the Alice's. Big Bang. Tim coming into this thinking he's going to have advantage being the big fighter, but Spencer's showing he can take big punches. I think they're similar sizes actually. Aren't they, Big Bang? I think they fought at different weights, but I think Errol Spence was just boiling him down to 147. He should have been a 154 pounder, probably his whole career, and just boiled himself down as long as he could. And I think when they actually weigh in, you'll probably see both guys being a very, very similar size. And I think Errol will be more than able to go with Tim as far as his strength and everything goes. Drew, I know that Jeff Fennick will receive an avalanche of criticism if Tim loses to Spence. Such criticism wouldn't be entirely justified, given that Team Eagle lost 3 fights with Tim. It's not going to matter, Drew. We're going to come for Jeff no matter what, mate. You know that. Glenn, I was talking about Charlo pre the Canelo offer. Well, I don't think he ducked him. He was booked in to fight him. I just don't think he rated Tim. I just think he thought there was bigger fights out there. I just don't think he rated him. And he was scheduled to fight him, remember? And then he got injured, and then the Canelo... That was at the end of 22, I think, wasn't it? When they were supposed to fight? No, it got called... It was supposed to happen at the start of 23, I think it was. And then around Christmas, I think Christmas Eve or whatever it was, 2022, he pulled out with the hand or whatever it was, or whatever injury he had, and then he fought Canelo after that. So I don't think I still stand by the fact he's never ducked Tim Tszyu, mate. You don't, as I said before, you don't duck Tim to fight Canelo. All right, Bill, saying Tim is scarier than Canelo. Really? Night. All love Monday nights with you guys. Good on you, Bill. Thanks for tuning in, mate. Big J, with all the shit that Fennick has thrown at everybody, Glenn Rushton and both of Tim's teams. Yeah, good point, Big J. If Tim loses, Jeff deserves every bit of flack coming his way. Yeah, I do agree with you, Big J. Yep, I do. Yep. Yeah, he got stuck into Glenn and Igor, didn't he? And Glenn Jennings and everyone else. Yep, he did, mate. So, what's this, Mark? You're going to give Jeff credit if Tim wins, Big J. Fair's fair. I'm with you, Mark. Yeah, if he loses and doesn't add anything to Tim, well, he deserves all the criticism. But if he wins, then he deserves all the credit and praise, 100%. Yep, that's correct there, Mark. Right, pound for pound. What about if Tim fights for a belt at middleweight? That division is wide open. His last fight was at 157 and this fight at 158. I wouldn't be surprised if he does go up pound for pound. Yep. I think it depends on what happens, obviously, with all the champions. If Ortiz, Ennis, and Fundora make a little bit of a pact that they're all going to sort their shit out for all those 3 belts, then that puts them right out of the equation for probably 18 months, at least 12 to 18 months. Kelly is the one, but again, if Tim doesn't want to fight for that IBF belt because of the rehydration clause, all he would have to do is go to the WBO, like he was previously ranked a few months back when they ranked him at number 1 with the WBO at middleweight. All they would have to do is go back to them and say, look, we want a campaign at middleweight. They'd probably get him straight into the WBO, and I'm pretty sure, is that belt vacant at the moment? Is it the WBO that stripped Janabek? So he could almost go into a title fight pretty much straight away. So don't rule that out. If Josh Kelly says that he's got Agiaka, whatever his name is, coming up, He then might have a big offer from somebody else Eddie Hearn wants to put him in with. That keeps him out of the equation. And again, whether Tim wants to ever fight for that belt anyway. So who knows? It could be on the cards, mate. We'll see. Big J to Mark. Beating up a blown up, washed up welterweight. Hardly. If he beats a world champion, then he gets credit. Ortiz, Boots, Kelly, or Fundora, but an inactive fighter like Spence, no, very little. You got to give him a little bit of credit, Big J. This is Jeff. You got to give him credit, mate. I mean, Spence is still a good fighter. I know it's not as much as if he beats Boots, Ortiz, and Kelly, but to take Tim from where he was at after that Fundora fight and get him into a fight with Spence and beat Spence, even though Spence has been out. I'm not saying it's got as much credit as it would have had 3 years ago, but you still got to give him some brownie points, I think. And what's that, BJ? You've been saying Tim should move to 160 for 2 years now. Nothing but ass kicking is coming Tim's way if he stays at 154. Drew says, you raise a very valid point, but at the end of the day, I guess nobody cares about what is fair or isn't. It's all about wins and losses. Boxing fans and media are brutal with losses. Yeah, they are, mate. Yep, we can be like that sometimes. A couple more questions here. We've got about 5 minutes to go, so we're actually timed this pretty well. Dan, another what if would be, how do you, I can never pronounce it, Abuchi, whatever it is. Yeah, geez, he could have been anything, Dan. Didn't he come back recently? I think he did, like 50 or 60, whatever it was. He was a talent back in the day, mate, for sure. Big J, sorry if you meant the flak Fennec will cop if Tim loses. Yeah, got you. Yeah, no, look, and Jeff will 100% deserve the pushback. If Tim can't beat Errol Spence, then Jeff will have to wear it, just like he criticised all the other trainers and everything else. Look, if Jeff gets Tim to a point where we see head movement, we see a calculated game plan, we see better conditioning, we see hard punches, we see a better Tim Tszyu, and he still falls short, I think you still have to say, all right, Jeff, okay, it didn't come off, but job well done. If we see a Tim Tszyu that doesn't look any different and hasn't really progressed or done anything better, then of course Jeff deserves the flack. But if we see a better version of Tim and he still comes up short, I think Jeff Fenech still deserves some credit for that. Because, I mean, Jeff might get Tim in a great position to win, and Tim fights a great fight, and we get an Errol Spence that turns up that's 90% of what he was, and he has a good win, and, you know, it is what it is. But I just think it comes down to how Tim performs on the night and the changes that we see in him. I think that's going to dictate whether Jeff cops some backlash or not. But again, even if he loses, they're all going to come for Jeff no matter what. What do we got? Joe, losing to Crawford hardly makes Spence washed up. I think he means that he's been out for 3 years, Joe. I think that's what he means. Yeah, 3 years, not 3. Yeah, no, but the 3 years of inactivity does, yeah. Well, but I suppose we also don't know that, do we, Big J? We don't know. We don't know the extent of how washed up Errol Spence is, or even if he is washed up. Who knows? Look, one thing we're discounting a little bit. We're all talking about him being out for 3 years and hasn't done this and hasn't done that, and he's going to be washed and ring rusty and all the rest of it. What happens if the opposite happens? What happens if the 3 years out, we know he's had all sorts of dramas with the injuries, the car crash, the eye, all the dramas, the weight cuts, all that sort of stuff. What happens if he comes back and his body is totally refreshed? He's feeling good, no more injuries, his body's feeling and looking good. His head has had a chance to sort of heal as it does. He's had a lot of wars, took a lot of punishment against Crawford. He's had 3 years for his mind to get back to what it was. He's had 3 years to decompress and get away from the boxing bubble. The extra weight makes him a lot stronger and just better prepared physically, mentally, everything. What happens if that Errol Spence comes over and he actually turns out to be a better version than what he was going into the Errol Spence fight, going into the Terence Crawford fight? What happens if that does occur? I think we've got to also be thinking of that as well, and that's why this fight is so fascinating. Tim Tszyu, are all those wars behind him? We can't really gather much out of his last two fights because they were so soft. What happens if he comes out and those wars with Fundora and Murtazola have actually made him, those 2 last fights that he had were actually an indication of where he was at, and that he's totally washed. And he comes out and doesn't even be competitive against Errol Spence. Because those last 2 fights that Tim had against those last 2 guys showed absolutely nothing. It was a glorified, just a sparring session for him. Neither one of them attempted at any stage to win the fight. They went through the motion. He fought at exactly the pace that he wanted to fight at. He could press when he wanted to press. He could rest when he wanted to press. He could have probably stopped him any time he wanted to. He had it all his own way. What happens if that was all just a camouflage to having a really totally done version of Tim Tszyu after that Fundora fight? What happens if that fight with Fundora just totally washed, tipped Tim over the edge where he was completely done, completely washed up? And those 2 fights in just camouflaged it. And when he gets in against Spence, who might be totally refreshed by the 3 years out, and it's just a total mismatch. These are all the things that make it so fascinating. I'm hoping that it's the other way around, where Errol comes in and he's the one that's inactive and washed and everything else, and over the hill, and Tim is actually going to be the better fighter. But we just don't know. And again, that's what makes it so fascinating. Pound for pound, am I the only blown up, washed up welterweight that gets offended by Big J? Well, I'm a little bit offended too, pound for pound, because I was a welterweight as well. All right, and I'm at 53 years of age. I know I'm probably washed up. But yeah, I could probably fit that category as well as being a washed up welterweight. But no, I don't take offence. Yes, pound for pound. Yes, I was, mate. I was a welterweight. All right, last question. What do we got? Joe, his camp with Crawford was stuffed. He didn't spar from an injury. I think you're going to see he's a very good Spence. Time will tell. Yep. Yeah, we'll see, mate. One last one from Big J. Blown up, washed up welterweight is in reference to Spence, Horn, Denton, Vessel, that Tim fought nobody else. Well, Stevie Spark, he was probably a blown up junior welterweight, wasn't he? He was too, wasn't he? Mark Spence was more a welterweight weight bully. Now he's fighting where he always should have been. Yeah, I'm with you there, Mark, for sure. All right, guys. Well, having said that, let's call it a night. We're a couple of minutes over the time. But always, as always, really appreciate everyone tuning in. It's great to talk boxing with all you guys and girls out there, and it's the 2 hours always goes super quickly, and it's certainly the highlight of my week with everything that I do. Don't forget, every day between 11 and 12, I'll always have a video out, the walking boxing, which catches up with all the latest news and everything else. And I'm not so sure, just before I go, I'm not quite sure Wednesday will be able to happen. I've got a birthday party that I have to, or birthday dinner that I have to attend. I'm going to see if I can swap a few things around and maybe have another episode of Talking Boxing later in the week. But I'll definitely do one in the lead up to Spence and Tszyu, as far as getting some of the experts on to have a chat about it as well. So, guys, have an awesome week, and we'll catch you next Monday night on Talking Boxing.